Hi, welcome to the Climate Action Podcast. I'm your host, Zainab Rashid, lead climate researcher at Earth Love United Foundation. Today, I'm going to provide an overview of the devastating oil spill that occurred in Mauritius in July 2020. Warm, beautiful, deep blue beaches, volcanic rocks, stunning coral reefs and impressive mangrove forests. These are some of the resources Mauritius is known for. Home to a significant number of marine species and fragile ecosystems, the island witnesses life to its fullest and richest degree. However, what seemed to be paradise on Earth abruptly turned into a real nightmare on the 25th of July 2020. In fact, you might be familiar with the disastrous events that deeply struck the island last year.
This is the CBS Evening News.
The island nation of Mauritius is under a state of emergency as residents try to stop a massive fuel spill from destroying its pristine beaches.
If you aren't, well, this isn't a surprise either, for reasons we'll come back to later. Now, back to the events. For causes that still remain unknown today, a Japanese-owned bulk carrier known as MV Wakashio was navigating under the flag of Panama from China to Brazil. During its journey, it hit a coral reef extremely close to Mauritius' coastline. The vessel was owned by a Japanese company called Okio Maritime Corp., a subsidiary of Nagashiki Shipping, operated by Mitsui O.S.K. Lines, which is one of the world's largest shipping companies. The ship contained almost 4,000 tons of fuel oil, which inevitably started leaking after the crash. By August 11th, around 1,000 to 2,000 tons of fuel were spilled from the ship. Two days later, it split into two. More worrying still, the contents that leaked into the ocean turned out to be a new kind of highly toxic heavy oil. Needless to say, the consequences of this event are disastrous. As the spill happened close to a marine park, a small coral atoll, and two wetland sites of international importance, the prospects for recovery are somber. Days after the spill, the Mauritius government activated its National Oil Spill Contingency Plan, which consists in implementing various steps to control and mitigate the effects of such an incident. On the 7th of August, as the terrible effects of the spill gradually started manifesting, a state of environmental emergency was declared. Following these developments, huge protests, some of the largest in Mauritian history actually, emerged to call for action and compensation.
The people here say not enough has been done. Thousands gathered in the capital Port Louis, calling for an investigation and for government officials to step down.
Since day one, I have soliciting our government that the immediate precautions should be taken to prevent any spillage into the ocean, but that never happened.
Along these efforts, international aid also engaged in attempting to mitigate the damage. Specialist teams from France and Japan, as well as international bodies such as the International Maritime Organization, the UN Development Programme, and other UN agencies are all working together to restore what was once known as an environmental paradise. Despite these efforts, important questions still remain unanswered today, with a spectrum of environmental disasters still looming over the island, now more than ever. According to a body of Greenpeace researchers, there has been a tendency from the government, the Japanese corporation, and even international organizations to keep crucial information from the public eye. While the causes of the incident are still unknown, the precise impact of the spill on the people's health and the island's marine wildlife remain concealed. This brings us to our last and probably most important point. Why is this specific event absolutely key? Why is it important to raise awareness about this disaster? Why should people from all around the world even care? The fact that you have probably never even heard of the spill, or mildly even remember it being mentioned in the news last year, reveals a wider systematic issue when it comes to the shipping industry. In fact, the latter remains completely out of reach of political, economic and social agendas. Despite being extremely dangerous for the world's biodiversity and the people it inhabits, this industry lacks international attention and, more importantly, regulations. When looking at international law, which should be the most important mechanism preventing future incidents from happening, large loopholes end up disturbing its effectiveness. In the case of Mauritius, the issue is that the comprehensive international legal liability and compensation regime tackling oil pollution doesn't apply. As a quick overview of the law, These sorts of disasters should be covered by the so-called International Oil Pollution Compensation Fund regime established by the International Convention on Civil Liability for Oil Pollution Damage and the International Convention on the Establishment of an International Fund for Compensation for Oil Pollution Damage. This regime would provide around $286 million of compensation, which is absolutely key to cover the economic and at least some of the international environmental cost of the leakage. However, since the vessel was a bulk carrier and not an oil tanker, it is the International Convention on Civil Liability for Bunker Oil Pollution Damage which applies. The problem here is that it imposes limited liability on the ship owner as the amount is constrained by the size of the ship. In any case, the maximum level of liability would amount to about $65 million. It is these types of laws and the fact that many states haven't ratified the conventions that make the impunity for these events a widespread reality. All in all, this means that the shipping industry stands somewhat outside of the radar of international law and attention, meaning future incidents are extremely likely to happen without there being any form of accountability. This is a lesson which must be learned from the Wakashio oil spill. Immunity should be the exception. Thank you for listening to the Climate Action Podcast, brought to you by Earth Love United Foundation. Visit our website to see how you can get involved and help bring justice for Mauritius.